our latest episode of the Kith and Kin podcast, Stories from the Hospitality Industry. And I'm really happy to be welcoming Glenda here with me to tell us all about the ups and downs that have brought her to where she is and what makes the hospitality industry so special. Hi, thank you so much for coming to join me with this conversation. Can we just start with an introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi Cassie, thank you for having me. I'm Glenda Barber, and I'm a freelance marketing consultant for food, drink, and hospitality brands.
Amazing. And I say to everyone, I really want to get straight into that. So tell me more. But we're going to start at the beginning, as always. And I want you to tell me, where did it all start? Where was your first introduction to hospitality?
Well,
And what made you fall
yeah.
in love with it?
So it's probably not what made me fall in love with it, because I can't remember this specifically. But my first experience of hospitality was my grandparents owned a pub. I'm from South Wales. You might be able to tell from the accent. I get told it's there sometimes and not the others, so see if you can pick it up. But
As soon as you mention it, you can hear it.
yeah. I live in England now. No. Um, yeah, my grandparents had a pub in South Wales, and I think I might have moved in there for a little while when I was born, and my parents needed help with me and newborn and all of that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. And um, yeah, so that's like my first foray into hospitality. And they had that pub for quite a while. And then I remember things like my nan used to take me to this restaurant in Cardiff called the Louis. And they did these amazing ice cream floats, and they'd serve the ice cream scoops at the table so you could like watch it fizz in the glass.
Yeah,
And
yeah, lovely.
just like all these core memories get unlocked as soon as you like stop and take a look back at hospitality experiences.
And it's really interesting you're talking about that, because actually I think people miss that and forget that these memories that people hold on to, so often they are the surrounding, that where these things happen is in hospitality venues. And,
Yeah,
that's the importance of hospitality, and people forget. I mean, even operators themselves forget how important their venues are for that space for memories to be created.
yeah, 100%. And they'd obviously have no idea that doing that, I'm still talking about it 30 odd years
Yeah,
later. Like
yeah.
yeah, it's completely crazy that hospitality can have that effect on you. Um, and then I think like career wise, I started working in a pub, as most young people do, as soon as I was old enough, collecting glasses, worked my way up to waitressing. And eventually I did an assistant manager's qualification, like an internal qualification with
Yeah, yeah.
Brewery, who had like a stupid number of pubs at the time. Um, and I saved up to go traveling, went traveling, did all of that. Came back, went back to the same pub because it was easy. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, and I
Um,
guess sort of felt like home in a way as well. Like when
yeah,
when you come back,
exactly. And
you
you're
just
kind
sort
of
of
like,
slot straight back in again.
yeah, and then, I feel like in hospitality, the managers, like you make proper relationships with your bosses. Like
Yeah,
it's not like oh, there's like another one gone. I felt
yeah,
like quite attached to it. So it made sense just to go back there
yeah,
when I came
yeah,
back.
yeah.
And yeah, just went straight back into an assistant manager's role, which was amazing. And then an internal position came up for head office. And I'd been to university at some point during this story, and got a degree in advertising. I was like, I should probably try and start using that at some point. And it was for like a sales and marketing assistant role, in the marketing department. And I was like, sounds great. Went
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
interview. It was my first like proper interview, because at the time I don't feel like hospitality really like interviewed people. They were like, can you do this? Can you smile? Are you like compass mentis? Then yeah, you can have the job.
Yeah. Who are you? Oh yeah, you
Um,
can stand up. Let's give it a go.
yeah, exactly. So Yeah, and then so I went to work at Brain's head office, so at their brewery in Cardiff, which was amazing for me. Like working in a brewery, they were making like beer there every
Yeah,
day, and you could
yeah.
smell it. Everyone that used to like get off the train in Cardiff, you could smell that as soon as you stepped off the train onto the platform. And um, while I was there, I kind of worked my way up into different roles. So I was trade marketing exec part of the business. And I think I was there for about 7 years altogether, but it was just the best team. Actually, this is how mad it is. My old director, Richard Davis, randomly messaged me on LinkedIn the other day saying that he was reminiscing with someone in the pub about our old team and asking me to remember someone's surname. And it just like took me right back to that time. And I was like, wow, like you just never forget some of those early relationships that have like formed your career. I feel like that's quite unique to hospitality.
And I think you're totally right, and I think that is one of the sort of, you know, I have these conversations on this podcast all the time, and a lot of these same things get said over and over again. And I think it is that really important that for really often young people are starting out in the hospitality industry, and quite often it's the first time they're forming these adult relationships, they're learning to become adults, and they, you know, and they feel valued. I mean, outside of, obviously, you know, hopefully people do feel valued at home and school, but actually in an adult environment, being valuable instantly is really powerful. And you know, and as we said before, you know, sort of like that forming the family and the relationships you have with your colleagues, it's really it's, you know, it's really important for young people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I guess it's not so much your formative years, but I guess you're still learning, aren't you? You're still growing. And like you say, first step into a career and all of these new relationships and bosses and office politics that you never knew existed. Um, but yeah, I was there for a long time, and then I decided Brains sadly announced a bit of a restructure at that time, and I was like, do I want to stick around and find out if I've got a job at the end of this? Probably not. So I decided to go off into different industries and see what was out there and get some different experience. And it was a really sad time for me actually because I'd had so many happy memories at Brains. I didn't really want to leave, but I was like, no, I'm going to push myself and get outside of hospitality. So
Yeah, yeah.
worked in healthcare for a while, education, um, loads of completely random stuff, and eventually ended up back in hospitality in 2016 for loungers, and went to work for their Cosy Club brand. So
So
they didn't have
just going,
anyone. Sorry.
sorry, no, just going back slightly. So because you've worked in hospitality and you've come back to hospitality, but that bit in between where you're working for education or healthcare or other things, so you can attest to, you know, the difference in those environments in terms of, I mean, is hospitality genuinely a better, nicer place? Because I think it must. I think it must be.
100% it is. I feel like, as a bit of an overview, I felt like other industries were much more high pressured. They felt like they were saving lives. And I guess you could argue healthcare maybe is saving lives, but hospitality just doesn't take itself too seriously, and
Yeah,
it kind of welcomes everyone with open arms. And everywhere else felt very corporate, very strict. There were lots of rules. I even had a uniform in one place, and that hadn't happened before. And yeah, it's just an all-round nicer place to be. And as like
yeah,
basic as that sounds, everyone's just happier in hospitality. I think just because of the nature of the stuff that you're doing, you're giving other people a nice time in whatever
yeah,
guise you're doing it
yeah,
in.
yeah.
So what is there to be sad about?
Yeah, because
In a
I
way.
imagine because you on when you're on the front line in hospitality, you know, it's very obvious you're serving people, and that's, you know, the job title sometimes is server. So, but that service sort of permeates all the way through, doesn't it? That everybody feels that they're part of what's creating those great experiences for other people and serving people. Yes, as
Yeah,
opposed to
100%.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I have had other jobs. I just pretend I haven't. But hospital, I just forget about them. But hospitality, you know, I think hospitality has a special uniqueness about it
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons.
definitely.
I think one of those is, and also we tend to have very big teams, don't we? That even when you're in the office, um the the well, back of house and front of house, the teams working with the customer, they're big teams compared to other industries, and so there's just a lot of people and a lot of you know people being aligned to the same the same vision and mission, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what you were saying about I kind of pretend that I've never worked anywhere else. I do exactly the same thing. So I'm like, I worked at Brains, and then there's this bit in the middle that I did, and then I came back to hospitality at lounges. Like, yeah, I kind of gloss over that bit in the middle, even though it was like a real serious chunk of time and a really
Yeah,
big chunk of my life. It kind of like, I guess, because that's what I'm focused on now. You just pick out the bits that are relevant. But
yeah.
um,
So
yeah,
you end up with loungers, and loungers at an exciting time.
yes, and still are, I think. But you know, rapid growth. Nobody ever stops. Nobody ever sleeps. And just yeah, wild ambition, and they're obviously doing really well. They're in the press every other day. But at the time that I joined, the team was still quite small. And like in my tenure, I think we doubled the size of the Cosy Club estate. So, you know, very well rehearsed in new openings.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the job, but they
But they're
didn't
quite
really have
challenging, aren't they?
anyone. Sorry?
Let's just say that new openings are very challenging, actually. I mean,
Yeah,
the customer, you think, oh, I hear something new's going to open. Oh, it's open. There we go. Well, how difficult was that? And I mean, I've had friends do new openings, for big actually retail brands where they are zooming down the motorway, turning up at a place, doing an opening, and leaving again. But hospitality is a bit more complicated than that to get something,
yeah,
to build up the tension,
yeah.
open it, and then keep, I mean, particularly from a marketing point of view. Operationally, of course it is, but from a marketing point of view, to build that momentum in the first place.
100%. It's a lot more about relationship building. And I think we often found ourselves in quite a well-loved building with Cozy Club. If you're familiar with the brand, it's usually
Yes,
they
yeah,
have very characterful buildings, which as a marketer is like amazing. I've got this fantastic building that I can build a whole story around. This is
yeah,
perfect.
no,
But yeah, there's usually a lot of um opinions, I would say, like locally from people of
yeah,
what should go in there and what should be on their local high street, and they get quite defensive about, no big brands coming in. And so there is a lot of, pre-work that you do to build those relationships with other local businesses, whether they're bigger brands or smaller brands, or, we'd even go into the local bookshop and say hello. And it's about bringing those people in to show them what you're about, and you're not that big bad brand that people think you are. And
yeah,
and it really is like boots on the ground sort of stuff. There's nothing majorly technical and highbrow about it. But yeah, it was a mad time at lounges. And then obviously COVID hit and just threw everybody up in the air. So that was interesting. And that's when I got pregnant with my first child and decided not to return after maternity leave. And yeah, started freelancing, started my own thing, and still supporting the hospitality industry,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
albeit in a slightly different guise of I seem to be working for B2B businesses. So I know you had Annika on here as a previous
yeah,
guest, so she's one
yeah,
of my clients. Um, So yeah, it's very varied, um, always fun, and yeah, can't complain.
And so I know because we've spoken before, and actually we're in so how I met you and some other amazing hospitality people was from online communities
Yeah,
that are popping up all over the place. And I know that you now, as of yesterday, I think, are now
yeah.
running one, which I say as of yesterday. It's not a new start; it's been up and established for a long time.
Mm.
Tell me about that, because that's all very hospitality industry related as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So the legendary Victoria Searle, who is the founder and head hawk of Data Hawks, started a WhatsApp group in lockdown. And I think in her own words, she would say to have a little bit of a cry about lockdown and a bit of a moan
And
about it.
lots of great businesses began that way.
Yeah, exactly. And she said it started off with, a few people that she knew of, and then people got wind about it. Can I join? Can I join? And today, so 5 years later, there are approximately 700 people in there from across hospitality, mostly marketers. The conversation is marketing, menus, and hospitality suppliers that work in a kind of marketing sphere. So, huge amount of talent in there, huge amount of opinion, lots of chat about dogs, uh, lots of chat about food recommendations. But, jokes aside, hugely valuable relationships are being formed in that group, and we've
Yeah,
all got Vic
absolutely.
to thank for that. When I went freelance, it was the first place I went to tell everybody, and I got, a full roster of clients out of it straight off the bat. So I'll always be massively grateful for that.
Yeah.
But the time has come, and Vic has kindly maybe handed handed the mantle over to me. So yeah, it feels quite daunting, but very exciting and hugely honoured. Yeah, if you are working in marketing in hospitality, please get in touch because we'd love to have you. You need to join the club.
I don't know, no, no. Yeah, so as you say, it is reasonably daunting to be managing a community, because actually it does take a lot to manage it and make it work. So it's not a not necessarily an easy task to be taking on, but it is extremely powerful, as you say, to be anybody, to be start part of a community of peers. And I think it's something that has been made. I mean, as I say, great things came out of the awfulness that was COVID, but one of them was this opportunity that people saw for creating these communities of, which obviously, and in exactly the same case as this, and to be fair, Kith and Kin started with a very similar outlook. Started in lockdown with we went online. It was operators all talking to each other, like going, "Oh my goodness, what are we going to do?" And that's how it started. Like, this is awful, and we literally had, you know, we literally had two businesses on the same road, but one was in Wales and one was on the other side of the border in England with completely different rules. And it was,
Yeah,
these conversations taking place, but
yeah,
but but it very quickly grew into something way more than that, which was this sharing of ideas and challenges, and this thing that had never existed, at least not in my experience of hospitality previously, where actually people had been prepared to, and it will be the same in your group, speak to the competition and, have conversations about what are you doing, and because actually, why not? Because there's plenty enough of work for everybody out there. In the same way in hospitality, there's plenty of enough customers out there for everybody. But why should we not be surrounding ourselves with other people as ambitious as we are, rising, is that whole thing, what is it, that you settle into your own standard and rise up to others' expectations or something. It's like this, when you surround yourself by other people doing great things, it helps you
yeah.
to lift up.
100%. Yeah, and I don't know many other industries who'd be willing to get into a group with their competitors and start sharing ideas and telling each other what they did to get over a certain hurdle. It's is pretty unique and a testament to hospitality really and the people within it. Like in the face of COVID, yeah, let's all get together and talk about what we're doing to try and, carry on and yeah, amazing. So yeah, it's a lovely group to be part of for sure.
So now you're freelance
Yeah.
and working with individual clients. Who is it? I mean, don't tell me names, but who is a typical? Oh, you can tell me names. No, who is a typical client of yours? Who do you work with?
So I'm sure they won't mind me saying, I work with Annika at Two Forks, and we're launching something very exciting, which I can't talk about at the moment. But that's going to be coming out very soon. So
Amazing.
I work with Vic at Data Hawks, and I also work with a lady called Catherine Gwynn who runs 2G Design and Build, so interior design and build for hospitality. And mostly just working with each of them on their marketing strategy, launches, sort of behind the scenes stuff, helping them get more hospitality clients, shall we say,
Yeah.
in a nutshell. Yeah, just privileged to work with some really powerful women in this industry as well, to be honest, influential women.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And in their roles, what problems are they typically encountering? Which is what driving them to come to you.
I mean, typically with any kind of B2B business, it's mostly, managing leads. So how you kind of push those leads through the sales funnel, so to speak. I'm getting a bit technical now. It doesn't feel like this on a day-to-day basis, but if someone's contacting you through the website, what touch points are we then kind of following up with? Do they go on some sort of journey? Do we contact them directly? Is it more personable? Is it, they go on a journey that everyone else goes on? And how do we talk to them and understanding what their pain points are that have got them to this point that they've made contact with one of these businesses?
Yeah.
Is it that their menu is a bit rubbish and they need Annika to engineer it for them? Is it that they have absolutely no idea what to do with the tons of data that they've got in their business and they need Vic to come in and completely take hold of it and transform it? Is it that they're opening a new site and they need Catherine and her team to completely design the brand, the look, the feel, um, and yeah, how we make them feel like it's okay, we've got you, we can do this for you, we can help you through it, and this is how we're going to do it. So a lot of it is communication, a lot of it is understanding the customer, and um, yeah, it's fast paced, and with three of them, I feel like that's quite enough at the moment.
No, no, fantastic. But in terms of sort of like just reflecting that back on your experience in hospitality, I mean, because it
Mm.
actually sounds very, very similar in terms of, well, similar, at least those those skills you would have learnt, very early on, as in serving customers face to face, are very similar to the ones that you're using now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, understanding how that customer has ended up coming into your pub or in your cafe or whatever is kind of crucial to how you're interacting with them whilst they're there. So, have they walked in because they've just had a breakup and they're really upset, really distracted, they're on their phone a lot? What can you do to like brighten their day a little bit? What if somebody's just walked in with their entire family and they haven't booked because they're really busy but they want a quick meal and the kids are all screaming, and how do you help them through that situation? It's just understanding your customer, I feel like, is like the most important thing that you could be doing in hospitality, and just being really aware, socially aware of what's going on around you in any given moment and reacting to that situation. That's certainly what I learned in hospitality early on.
And that piece about knowing your customer is true for any business. But I think in
Mm,
hospitality, we learn it so quickly and
yeah,
early on. because
Yeah.
actually we become intuitive about it when you get good at what you're doing, because I mean that's what you're doing. You're learning, you're watching people and learning their from, you know, just sort of the small signals they're giving. So you know, you're trying to understand what they'll need and want next before even they do, and that's part of the whole purpose of exceeding expectations and great customer service, which is essential for every business to be able to understand that.
Yeah,
I,
100%. It becomes like intuition almost when you're on what I would call the front lines. You're actually serving people front of house or back of house too. Is just, yeah, being really tuned in to what's going on. You interact with different customers in different ways. It's exactly the same digitally. You just do it in a very different way. You can't, they're maybe not as visible to you as they are when they're stood in front of you making an order. But yeah, it does become intuitive in hospitality, and you know that you've had a really good time somewhere when the team have been really good at that and they've managed to just change the way that they interact with every other table. I went to Six by Nico the other day. It's just opened in Bristol. And
nice, yeah.
our server, I think his name was Josh. I did write it down. He was absolutely amazing and so like theatrical. He like made a point of asking us why we were there, and we were celebrating my husband's job promotion, and it was one of our first meals out without the kids in a long time. So he like properly switched it on and was like, "Oh, well, you're going to need the wine flight." And you know, just I
Oh,
know
nice,
that their sales
clever.
tactic. Yeah. But it just like it brought in some humor, it made us relax a bit. He was so knowledgeable about all of the menus. Every time he brought a dish over, he would tell us about the ingredients and why we were going to enjoy it. And it just added to the whole thing. And I was like, God, it just gave me goosebumps because I was like, this is why we work in hospitality, because it
Yeah,
does this to people.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it was great, and yeah, it's always about the customer first. Because I rave to everybody now about Six by Nico. I'm
yeah,
like, you've
yeah.
got to go.
And
Brilliant.
it contrasts if so the story this is the beauty also. Say we talked about earlier about how, you know, the venues being places where people's memories are formed, and actually the value that they create for that, but it's also the stories you tell, which is just so lovely. I mean that lovely, you know, and so often, I mean it's happened loads on this podcast when people have given, you know, when they're telling the story of exceptional service or an exceptional moment they experienced in hospitality, they're detailed and they're important and they made people feel special. I mean, and it just, you mentioned sort of mobile phone very earlier. It just reminded me of, because the other side of that is the stories, the bad stories they tell. And the story and it's just sat with me forever. Absolutely. And I can remember the people involved, and I can remember so I'd gone into this pub and gone up to the bar. It wasn't very busy, but there was a bloke in front of me who was currently being served. And whilst he was being served, he was on his phone. And the the woman serving, who happened to be the owner of the pub, basically stopped serving to him and basically said, until you can stop being so rude and get off your phone, I'm not serving you. And I was like, who's this pub for?
I mean,
He
yeah, I
was
don't
offended
blame
that
him.
he was so rude on his phone. And I think I've also, you know, sometimes when I've been, you know, training young people, and I'll say, I think it became more a regular occurrence as sort of I got older and they got younger. But in other words, a generational shift, I think, slightly. But this idea that customers had to always be polite to you, which obviously I'm not saying that customers should ever be allowed to be sort of, you know, really rude, and then there are behavioral boundaries, of course there are, but this not understanding what your purpose is in terms of a venue or a server, and that actually people are coming in here for their needs to be served, and and it's not for you to decide what sort of day they've had or what else is going on in their lives, or to judge that. You're not having it's not that type of relationship. It's far more complex than that. You can provide so much more with a smile and just a cheerful rising above it. It can make such
And
a big
also,
difference.
yeah, I think also maybe knowing that you've got the power to turn that around as well. So if
Yeah,
someone is having a bad day, how you handle certain situations could just transform someone's day. You hear about lovely stories all the time. People should tell those more.
yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah, no problem.
today, and for sharing your story. If people want to get into, tell us how they can join this community. I want to know how to do it, because I'm going to come and join it.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I don't know why you're not in there, Cassie. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can get my number from somebody, that's already in the group. And I will just need your phone number and I can, get you added.
Fantastic. So if someone comes and finds you on LinkedIn, mentions the group, they can get on in, and chat with you on the way. That would be fantastic.
That would be lovely. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, Cassie. You too.
Brilliant.